The helicopter blades sliced through the thin mountain air as Cristiano Ronaldo gripped the safety harness, his knuckles white against the metal. Beside him, Yamal's face was pale, eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and terror. "This is fucking insane. Car 7, Yamal shouted over the roar of the engine. "We're actually doing this shit." Ronaldo's trademark grin spread across his weathered face. "Listen kid, I've conquered every stadium in the world. These mountains, they're just another pitch to dominate." The Portuguese legend's arrogance was legendary, but something in his voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. The pilot's voice crackled through their headsets. "Gentlemen, we're approaching the drop zone. This is where I leave you." The helicopter hovered dangerously close to the jagged peak of Mount Damavand, Iran's highest mountain. Snow whipped around them like angry spirits. "What the hell do you mean leave us?" Yamal's voice cracked with panic. The pilot turned back, his face grim. "Emergency landing protocol. Engine failure. You jump now, or we all die in 30 seconds. Jump," Ronaldo roared, grabbing Yamal's arm. Without hesitation, the football legend leaped from the helicopter, dragging the young Barcelona star with him. They plummeted through the freezing air, their screams lost in the howling wind. The helicopter exploded above them, sending burning debris raining down like hellfire. Their parachutes deployed with violent jerks, nearly dislocating their shoulders. Yamal's chute caught fire from the falling wreckage. "My fucking parachute's burning," he screamed, frantically beating at the flames. Ronaldo watched in horror as his young companion spiraled toward the rocky mountainside. "Cut the lines! Cut the fucking lines!" With trembling hands, Yamal sliced through his parachute cords just as Ronaldo swooped down. Grabbing the teenager mid-air, they crashed into a snowbank with bone-crushing force, rolling down the steep slope like ragdolls. Rocks and ice pummeled their bodies as they tumbled toward an unknown fate below. When they finally stopped, blood stained the pristine white snow. Ronaldo's shoulder was dislocated, hanging at an unnatural angle. Yamal's leg was twisted beneath him, clearly broken. "Jesus Christ," Ronaldo gasped, spitting blood. "We're in serious shit now." The temperature was dropping rapidly, and hypothermia was already setting in. "I can't feel my leg," Yamal whispered, his lips turning blue. Around them, the mountain seemed to close in like a predator sensing weakness. Strange sounds echoed from the peaks above, sounds that didn't belong to any animal they knew. "Did you hear that?" Ronaldo's voice was barely audible above the wind. A blood-curdling howl pierced the air, followed by another, then another. The sounds were getting closer. "What the fuck was that?" Yamal's voice was pure terror now. Through the swirling snow, they could see massive shapes moving between the rocks, eyes glowing like amber coals in the darkness. "Mountain wolves," Ronaldo muttered, forcing himself to his feet despite the excruciating pain. "But they're huge. Too fucking huge." The pack leader emerged from the shadows, a beast the size of a small car, with fangs like daggers and fur matted with the blood of previous victims. Its growl rumbled like an earthquake. "We need to move. Now." Ronaldo hauled Yamal to his feet, ignoring the boy's screams of agony. They stumbled through the deep snow, leaving a trail of blood that the wolves followed like a dinner invitation. Behind them, the pack was gaining ground, their supernatural speed defying nature itself. A cave opening appeared in the cliff face ahead. There, Ronaldo pointed with his good arm. They half ran, half fell toward the entrance as the wolves closed in. The pack leader's jaws snapped inches from Yamal's heel as they dove into the cave's mouth. The darkness swallowed them whole. Inside the cave, their ragged breathing echoed off the walls. The wolves' frustrated howls reverberated from outside, but they seemed reluctant to enter. "Why aren't they following us?" Yamal asked, his voice shaking. Ronaldo was already exploring deeper into the cave, his phone's flashlight cutting through the blackness. "Because they know something we don't," Ronaldo replied grimly. The cave walls were covered in ancient symbols, carved deep into the rock. Strange hieroglyphs that seemed to move in the flickering light. "This place is old. Really fucking old." A fetid smell drifted from the depths, the stench of death and decay. They had no choice but to go deeper. The wolves waited outside like sentinels, and the temperature was dropping fast. Each step took them further from the world they knew and deeper into nightmare. The cave twisted and turned, leading them into the bowels of the mountain itself. A distant sound made them freeze. Not the wolves this time, but something else. Something that sounded almost human. A voice calling from the depths. "Help us." The words were barely audible, but unmistakably desperate. "Someone else is down here," Yamal whispered. They followed the voice deeper into the mountain's heart. The cave opened into a vast chamber, and their lights revealed a scene from hell itself. Dozens of bodies lay scattered across the floor. Hikers, climbers, explorers who had ventured into these cursed mountains and never returned, all mummified by the cold, their faces frozen in eternal screams. Oh my god! Yamal vomited into the snow. Among the corpses, they found recent victims, people who had died within days. Their flesh was torn, as if something had been feeding on them. What the hell happened here? Ronaldo's voice was hoarse with horror. A weak moan came from the far corner. A figure stirred among the bodies, barely alive, more skeleton than man. Help me! The survivor's eyes were wild with madness. It comes at night. It feeds. His words dissolved into incoherent babbling before he collapsed, drawing his final breath. As if summoned by the man's death, a new sound filled the chamber. A scratching, scraping noise that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The ancient symbols on the cave walls began to glow with an otherworldly light. We need to get the fuck out of here, Ronaldo said, but the entrance had vanished. Trapped in the chamber of death, they watched in horror as the walls began to bleed. Crimson liquid seeped from the cracks, pooling on the floor around the corpses. The smell of copper and decay filled their nostrils. This isn't real, Yamal whispered, his sanity beginning to crack. This can't be fucking real. Something moved in the shadows beyond their light. Massive, ancient, hungry. The scraping sound grew louder, closer. Whatever lived in these depths was waking up, and it was starving. Stay close to me, Ronaldo commanded, but his voice betrayed his own terror. Even legends could feel fear. The creature emerged from the darkness, a nightmare fusion of man and beast, with elongated limbs and skin like rotting leather. Its eyes were empty sockets, but it moved with purpose, guided by senses beyond human comprehension. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone, fresh meat, warm blood. Run! Ronaldo screamed, grabbing Yamal's arm. They sprinted through the chamber, leaping over corpses and dodging the creature's claws. Behind them, the monsters shook the entire mountain. Rocks fell from the ceiling as they searched desperately for another exit. A narrow passage opened to their right, barely wide enough for a human body. They squeezed through as the creature's claws scraped against the stone behind them. The passage wound upward, offering hope of escape. But the mountain wasn't finished with them yet. The passage opened onto a ledge high above a chasm that seemed to drop into the earth's core. The only way across was a rope bridge that looked like it had been built centuries ago. That thing won't hold our weight, Yamal said, staring at the rotting ropes. It's suicide. Everything's suicide at this point, Ronaldo replied, testing the first rope. It held, barely. Behind them, the creature's roars grew closer. They had seconds before it found the passage. Move your ass, kid. Ronaldo stepped onto the bridge, praying to every god he'd ever heard of. The bridge swayed sickeningly under their weight. Below them, the chasm yawned like a hungry mouth. Halfway across, one of the support ropes snapped with a sound like a gunshot. The bridge tilted at a dangerous angle, threatening to dump them into the abyss. Don't look down, Ronaldo shouted, but it was too late. Yamal made the mistake of glancing into the chasm and saw things moving in the depths, more creatures, waiting for them to fall. His grip loosened with terror. I can't do this. I can't fucking do this. Another rope snapped. The bridge bucked like a wild horse, and Yamal lost his footing. He dangled over the void, held only by Ronaldo's iron grip. The Portuguese star's dislocated shoulder screamed in agony, but he held on. I've got you, kid. Don't you dare let go. With superhuman effort, Ronaldo hauled Yamal back onto the bridge. They could see the other side now, solid rock, safety, but the creature had found them. It stood at the entrance to the passage, its eyeless face turned toward them. It began to climb onto the bridge. It's too heavy, Yamal screamed as the bridge groaned under the monster's weight. More ropes snapped in quick succession. They had seconds before the entire structure collapsed. We have to jump. Ronaldo assessed the distance to the other side, 20 feet of empty air. On 3, Ronaldo shouted. 1, 2. He didn't wait for 3. Grabbing Yamal, he leaped from the disintegrating bridge. For a moment, they flew through the air like birds. Then gravity took hold, and they slammed into the rocky ledge on the other side. The bridge collapsed behind them, taking the creature with it. Its roar of rage echoed from the depths as it fell. But their relief was short-lived. The ledge they'd landed on was unstable, already cracking under their weight. This whole fucking mountain is falling apart, Yamal gasped. They crawled away from the crumbling edge, deeper into another tunnel. This one led upward, toward what they hoped was the surface. Their bodies were broken, their spirits shattered, but they kept moving. The alternative was death in the belly of the mountain. After what felt like hours of climbing, they saw a faint light ahead. Natural light. Daylight. We made it, Ronaldo whispered, hardly daring to believe it. They staggered toward the opening, their legs barely able to support them. Freedom was within reach. They emerged onto a high plateau, blinking in the harsh sunlight. The view was breathtaking, endless peaks stretching to the horizon, painted in shades of gold and crimson by the setting sun. But they were still trapped on the mountain, miles from civilization, with no way down. Look, Yamal pointed to the valley below. Smoke rose from a distant village, signs of human life. It would be a dangerous descent, but it was their only chance. We can make it, Ronaldo said, but his voice lacked conviction. They were both injured, exhausted, and the mountain had already tried to kill them twice. As they began their descent, the ground beneath them gave way. They tumbled down a steep slope, bouncing off rocks and trees. When they finally stopped, they were both unconscious, their bodies broken and bleeding. The mountain had claimed them after all. Hours later, Yamal opened his eyes to find himself in a warm bed, surrounded by concerned faces. An elderly woman was tending to his wounds, speaking in a language he didn't understand. "Ronaldo?" he asked weakly. The woman pointed to another bed where the Portuguese star lay unconscious, but breathing. They spent 3 days recovering in the village, treated by locals who asked no questions about their ordeal. The villagers seemed to understand that the mountain had tried to claim them, and they were lucky to be alive. "We never speak of what happened up there," the village elder told them through a translator. As they rode away from the village, Ronaldo and Yamal sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The experience had changed them both. They had seen things that couldn't be explained, survived horrors that would haunt their dreams forever. "We can never tell anyone," Ronaldo said finally. "Who would believe us?" Yamal replied. But even as they spoke, they could feel the mountain's pull. It had marked them, claimed them as its own. They had escaped its physical grasp, but spiritually, they would always belong to those cursed peaks. The mountain would indeed call them back. Years later, both men would become legends in their own right. Ronaldo continued his football career, scoring goals and winning trophies. Yamal rose to become one of the world's greatest players. But sometimes, in the quiet moments between victories, they would remember the mountain. And sometimes, in their dreams, they could still hear it calling. The scars on their bodies faded, but the scars on their souls remained. They had looked into the abyss and survived, but they were forever changed. The mountain had shown them that there were things in this world beyond human understanding, ancient evils that slept in the deep places of the earth. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind howled outside their windows, they would wonder if the creature they'd left behind in the chasm was truly dead, or if it was still down there, waiting in the darkness, dreaming of the day when they would return to finish what they had started. The mountain never forgot, and neither did they, for in conquering the mountain, they had discovered that some victories come at a price too terrible to imagine. They had survived, but they were no longer the same men who had jumped from that helicopter. They were something else now, marked by the mountain, forever changed by their encounter with the impossible. Their adventure had ended, but their story would continue, for the mountain had given them a gift, the knowledge that there were still mysteries in the world, still places where the impossible became reality. And perhaps, when their playing days were over, they would return to those peaks, drawn by a call only they could hear. But that is a story for another day. For now, they carried their secret, their shared bond forged in terror and survival. They were no longer just footballers, they were survivors of the mountain's wrath, keepers of its darkest secrets. And the mountain would always be waiting for them, patient as stone, eternal as the stars above its peaks.